Well, good evening. Is it time to start? Okay. All right. Hi there. Happy holidays to all of you from the Omaha Symphony and Classical 90.7 KVNO. My name is Coleen Cook, and I'm the classical music host in the drive time. I do the classical commute on KVNO radio. And it is such an honor to be with you this evening to host this pre-concert party and this little conversation. It's connected to Home for the Holidays, which is, of course, the Omaha Symphony concert every year. It's a very, very important tradition in this town. And so I'm thrilled to be a part of it right now. You know, we really are home for the holidays this year, aren't we? Most of us have been isolated for almost all year. And, well, you know, Home Alone has been more than just a movie title for us this year. But, you know, the Omaha Symphony is bringing us together tonight. And that's going to be really special. Even in this time of social distancing, we can join together, talk about the fun, and the show will go on. And it's going on because of the wonderful people that we have this year. You know, I'm surrounded tonight with a lot of talent. It's been a challenging year for all of you, for performing arts organizations. So many concerts postponed, canceled. So now we're performing on radio, TV, online. It's wonderful to be able to use these mechanisms. Well, if you can't be at the Holland Performing Arts Center this year to see Home for the Holidays, the next best thing is seeing it tonight on television. About a half hour from now, it's going to be on Channel 6 TV here in Omaha beginning at 7 o'clock. So get ready for a wonderful surprise and a wonderful hour of music. So look at all this talent that's surrounded me, all these people off to the side here. I'm surrounded with these wonderful guests. We're going to talk to them, and we're going to start out by talking with the maestro who brings everything to life at this time of year, and he's going to introduce us to the performers who've made it all happen. Conductor Emest Richardson joins me along with Parker Esse, who is the director and choreographer of Home for the Holidays. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. Tell us about how the concert came together and what do each of you bring to the process when you do that?
Well, I think one of the most important things to really grasp about this program is that it's collaborative from its very beginning. So the opportunity to put this together with Parker is really more than a director, choreographer. He really is a co-creator with me, and it's wonderful to have a chance to have his perspective, his joy, his love of the holidays as part of this creative process.
And you've done this together before, correct?
Yes, many years now.
Yes, and but things were a little different this year. There were new challenges, right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about, well, the music they're going to be hearing, but what are all the things they're going to be seeing tonight?
Well, the program follows the same pattern that we've used in the past, which is a little bit like opening up the Christmas cards that you get, and you get them and you put them in a basket. And then our family tradition was that after all the gift giving and opening was done, then we would go through the cards and look at them. And each card had a picture, and the pictures were as different as the people sending them. But every one was important to the sender, and so it was important to the receiver. And we put our program together thinking about all the beautiful images of Christmas. And Parker, one of the amazing qualities that he has is he's a great storyteller. And so he takes these ideas and brings them to life, whether from a standpoint of choreography or from an overall picture of what's going on in the program. So the first thing I did when we got the idea to do this for television was give Parker a call.
How long does it take?
Well, usually it takes us about a year to plan the concert. When we wrap,
I'm not surprised.
Right, we start talks in January about the programming for the following year, and obviously things looked a lot different this year. In May, Emest and I were on the phone just chatting about, gosh, wouldn't it be fun to collaborate on a project at some point in time, knowing that it was probably unlikely that we'd be doing the Christmas concert this year. Lo and behold, 6 weeks ago, he calls and says, well, we're going to do it. We're going to do it for television. And it's going to look a lot different. So immediately, of course, I said, yes, let's make it happen. How are we going to make it happen? And we did it remotely. All of our meetings were on Zoom, and we talked through the programming and came up with a lineup through multiple calls, and decided that we were going to split up the production in Omaha and then on location, either in New York or Connecticut, depending on what we were able to do to film the dance numbers.
That's a major change then for this year, an exciting one too, I think. How many people are involved in this production this year?
Well,
It really depends on how you define how many, because you have a huge orchestra, you have our Broadway dancers, you have our 2 singers, and you have an entire crew that makes the television part of it possible. So I don't even know what that number is, but it's got to be close to 100.
All right.
That team looked a lot different this year. Usually we're collaborating with a scenic designer and a costume designer and a lighting designer just at the Holland Center. And this time we had 2 separate television units collaborating together, one in Omaha and then a film crew that we worked with on location in Connecticut to film the dance numbers.
Wow.
So all new team members to the broadcast to make the broadcast possible.
It's going to be incredible. Tell us a little bit about the music. And, Ernest, I've always wondered, with so much great Christmas music, how do you narrow it down? How do you decide what you play?
There is a lot of great Christmas music, but Christmas is a very traditional holiday. It's very nostalgic, and it means different things to different people. But all of those people have a certain number of songs that if they don't hear that song, then it just isn't Christmas. So even though there's a huge amount of Christmas music, there's probably about 20 songs that become the core of what we think of as Christmas. And so every year we try to have at least 10 of the top 20 in our program so that there's a good possibility that whatever song really means Christmas to a particular listener, they get to hear it.
And that's so special. I know I look forward to songs at this time of year. Well, we have a lot of guests tonight, a lot of fantastic guests. And let's talk, first of all, with our singers. Ernest and Parker, if you'd like to introduce Siri Howard and Max Quinlan, talk about how they became part of the show.
Well, I'll start off because I got to meet Siri and Max in New York when I was holding auditions for any number of projects. And our casting director at the time asked if it would be okay if one of the pairs would sing together, which I said, well, of course, I would love for that to happen. And then in walk Siri and Max, and they do an amazing number from The Light in the Piazza. And I was completely sold on both of them at that point, but I got to hear both of them separately. And Siri was one of the first hires that we made as a result of those New York auditions. Now, Max was harder to get a hold of because he was always busy on the Broadway stage. And it took years and years of, are you available for this one? Are you available for this one? And it took the entire collapse of the Broadway system because of COVID for us to be able to bring Max Quinlan to Omaha. And that is all true. I have not embellished a bit.
That's amazing. So tell me what was different this year as singers. Obviously performing has changed. What were the challenges? What were the differences? And I guess I'll ask Siri and Max that.
Well, one of the things that has been saddest about this is that we haven't been able to collaborate in the way that we are used to. And acting is reacting. So we're used to being face to face and singing to each other and communicating in a way that we are not able to and have had to overcome challenges and come up with new innovative ways to communicate and make art together. We are very fortunate in that we're a couple, so we actually can sing in each other's faces without worrying too much. So
all the time.
Only sing in front of each other. That's it. That's our only form of communication. So, so we actually are very fortunate, and it was wonderful to be able to get the phone call from Omaha. And, you know, I was so bereft this year thinking of having a Christmas without this show. So to get that phone call, we said, whatever you need, we're on board. How can we make this work?
Now, you are, you're a little bit in a different place this year, from what I understand, in a platform up front. What were the challenges of that, working with the orchestra?
Yeah, it was very different, I think, for both of us, having performed for most of our lives. We all of a sudden were getting used to new acoustics. We had in-ears to hear one another and to hear certain members of the orchestra. So the sound was all a very different experience for us. And as Siri said, we are a couple. So the fact that we got to be together, isolated and separate from the orchestra, but close with one another, it really helped to bring that magic together. And also, so much of art is about connection. And the two of us obviously have a beautiful connection that we get to put on display in this show. And our connection was even closer, just having that proximity to one another and being able to really perform with one another this year. So it was very special.
What was your favorite part of doing the show this year? I mean, it's obviously been a different way to do it.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah.
I think honestly, one of our favorite parts was the fact that everything, the joy of live theater is coming up with things in the moment. And so much of this experience was, oh, this is what our givens are, so we're going to make this work. Or we hadn't even seen the platform until the day we arrived. So we were like, oh, this is the space that we have to perform in. So we will make this work. So I think those were the exciting challenges. And I think that's honestly that's when the best art is created, is when people have to be their most creative and think outside the box and come up with things that they never would have otherwise. And that's when real magic happens. And we get to do it in everyone's living room, which is incredible.
I know it's going to be magic tonight. Thank you so much for what you've done. Now, next, we're going to talk with an actual member of the orchestra. James Giles is here, along with Emest Richardson. James, you've been playing in the orchestra for many years.
At least a minute.
How is this year?
Actually, some of it stays in. When Ernest talked about, those core tunes, as soon as I got the list and realized we were going to be on television, I went to this device called the YouTubes. And I hit up the old Andy Williams Christmas special because he had killer bands. I mean, he had Ray Brown playing bass in his band. So it was like, yeah, let's start getting those lines down. Let's start making this feel like TV, because that's how they're going to experience it as an audience. The other thing is that, and this is kind of the harder part. When we invite guest artists into the symphony, they're our colleagues. These people aren't our colleagues anymore. They're our friends. We've known these guys for years, and we're really, really missing them when we can't perform with them. So this was a real opportunity to grab something, and it meant a lot to the members of the orchestra to be able to do it this way. It really did. We were very, very happy that we got to perform with you guys again.
And I know that you're going to make thousands of people happy tonight when they get to see this performance, because this is such a special part of what Omaha is at this time of year. James, usually the bass section over on the right of this. In this production, you're positioned somewhere else. Tell me about that. What was that like?
Well, for me, it's my past. I mean, I grew up as a pit rat. I grew up as a kid in Philly, playing other people's high school shows and then subbing in the pits in Philly and some in New York. And my first job was with the opera company in Phoenix and with the Tucson Symphony and then with the Phoenix Symphony. So I've been playing in pits. I've done the Broadway shows here quite a bit. I've been playing in pits all my life. I started as an electric bass player that's learned to play double bass because all my teachers were from Curtis and they were like, yeah, let's get going, buddy. You need to play real bass. And I'm the luckiest guy in the band. I really am. I'm the luckiest guy in the orchestra. I get a taste of everything, and it's a blast and it's a challenge, but it's one I always welcome.
And you're speaking just for the whole orchestra, Ernest. What are the challenges been for the orchestra this year? I was at a concert just a month or so ago, and I was just so amazed at the sound. And yet, it is different, isn't it?
It is entirely different. there's no way to really describe how different this setup is than what we're used to doing. So the energy of orchestral music is all these people very close together, string players being on the same stand and enjoying each other's energy just in the bow stroke, or woodwind section being close together and blending their sound, and the whole orchestra being able to play together because they can hear what is going on. In our current situation, they can't really trust what they hear because they're spread apart so far. So it becomes a different kind of orchestral playing that's very visually driven. So it's very much about sort of watching stick, but it's also really focusing in on how do we interpret what we're hearing to know that we're together. And that takes whoever's at the podium just saying, yep, I know it sounds weird, but that's together. So that's the sound we're looking for. And these guys are amazing. I would have thought that what we were trying to do was going to be impossible. And every time we went into the stage, we would be in a different setup because we started off with a small orchestra, and then a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And every time we didn't know where the players were going to be or whether they'd be able to even play together. But they rose to the challenge every time. And as you'll hear tonight, they did a spectacular job against unbelievable odds. I mean, I just can't even begin to stress to you the artistry it takes for the orchestra just to play together when they're spread apart like that. It's really quite remarkable.
When I was there, I think it was a month and a half ago, and you know, you're there and everyone is spread out on the stage and you're thinking, how is this going to sound? And just the heavenly sound that came out, it was just wonderful. It's fabulous. Well, we don't want to shortchange, and it's not last but not least the dancers. Dancing is just a great part of Home for the Holidays. So joining us now are the dancers. Erica Mansfield is here, and she's with Parker. And Parker, the dance segment was shot in Connecticut this year, not here in Omaha. Tell me about that. Why was it not shot on stage, and how did you get through that process?
Well, we had to be safe this year. We had to find a location where all the dancers could have quarantined and followed all the safety protocols we need to make this possible. And through our back and forth with Ernest and Jennifer Boomgarden, the CEO and president of Omaha Symphony, yes, we decided to keep dance separate. In other words, do it close to home, New York City or Connecticut. I live in Connecticut, and all the locations we were looking at in New York City just became next to impossible to secure locations to shoot outside. And plus, there would be bystanders watching. How do you do crowd control? You know, and COVID cases numbers were going up. So we were looking for the most secure, safe location and place to do this. And my brother and sister-in-law were kind enough to offer their property in Connecticut for us to shoot on location. And I thought, my goodness, it's perfect. It's Home for the Holidays. We're gonna get to film right there in front of their gorgeous home. And all the dancers will feel safe, and we'll have a closed set, meaning no one will be there that's not been quarantined and safe. So it looked a lot different this year, but it sure was a fun adventure filming it on location in Connecticut. And we were also trying to beat the weather. It was really cold, and had we been delayed by one more day, we would have had a big snowstorm. So we were lucky to finish filming when we did. And I had 6 of the most incredible dancers to collaborate with, Erica being one of them. She's part of the Omaha Symphony family. And I'm just so lucky that all 6 of them said, yes, let's do it. Let's quarantine for 14 days. Let's rehearse via Zoom. Sure, I'll drive to Connecticut to shoot on location.
Tell us a little more about how you actually rehearsed the orchestra. I'm fascinated with the idea of that. How did you pull that together?
Well, it was really unique this year. The symphony had 3 different captures, meaning they recorded 3 different concerts the week prior. So when Max and Siri were there with the symphony recording, those audio tracks were being uploaded been sent to me. And then Ernest and I decided which version sounded best for the broadcast and tempos. And then I took those tracks, those audio tracks, and used them to rehearse with. So I front loaded the rehearsal process with my dancers with the music that had just been played and recorded in Omaha. And we met like this. We Zoomed rehearsals. So I set up a rehearsal schedule with my dancers. I danced here in my house, and everybody joined me from their living rooms. And I taught them all the choreography remotely, which was so different. Because just like Max and Siri were saying, it's about that feeling of being in person and collaborating and getting inspiration from the energy in the room. Well, we were having to do it through Zoom. So it was a lot different. And fortunately, we had 6 of the most open-minded, big-hearted dancers to work with, and I'm proud of all of their work.
Hey, let's talk with Erica Mansfield for a moment. Erica, being one of the dancers, what were the biggest challenges for you this year? What was the rehearsal process like?
Well, first of all, just to be able to rehearse in general was such a gift because, as you know, the Broadway shutdown has put such a stop to us being able to perform. And being a part of the Omaha Symphony family during this time was such a blessing for us, to even if it's on Zoom. So the challenges were obviously testing and having to be safe about everything, having to incorporate learning an entire show basically in my living room and doing air partnering. So I didn't even get to touch my dance partner until the day before we started filming. So as Max and Siri were saying, there was a lot of punting we had to do, challenges with the weather, slipping footwear, but being in the family environment, Parker's family's home environment just made it all the sweeter. We showed up to test the day that we started rehearsing together. We had a special van that we went to. We got our COVID test before we even showed up to the location. We had a COVID test before, about the week before we had to quarantine. So we had a lot of time at home together in this environment, which was new to me. I've never had to do that as a dancer. And it was a unique challenge. But, the beautiful thing about art is we can bring it into people's homes and we can see each other in this environment and we can make it work. So we really needed to do that this year, which made it even more special.
That is so exciting. And I can't wait to see this concert. And, we're going to see it in just a few minutes. Thank you all so much for speaking individually to those of us who are watching. Home for the Holidays, it's a tradition here in Omaha. And it's been such a challenge to put everything together this year, and yet it just sounds like it's going to be incredible. It's almost time. We're just minutes away from the broadcast. For those of you who are watching, it's coming up at 7 o'clock on Channel 6 in Omaha, and the concert will be rebroadcast on Christmas Day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon again on Channel 6. And also, you can stream some highlights at omahasymphony.org. And listen, be sure to download the Omaha Symphony app because, first of all, you can see the program notes, and that's always exciting. And you can also see some of the fascinating behind-the-scenes work and how the production came together and some of the things we've been talking about tonight. So at any rate, thank you all for joining us. It's been wonderful to have this conversation with you. I'm Coleen Cook, again, the afternoon drive time host of the Classical Commute on KVNO. And on behalf of Classical 90.7 and the Omaha Symphony, it's so wonderful to partner with you, and we're wishing all of you a very happy holiday season. So thanks for joining us, and enjoy the show. Goodbye.
Thanks.